On the eve of war, Prince Baku stood at the height of his power, arrogant, untouchable, feared by his enemies and worshipped by his people. When a mysterious servant girl caught his eye, he took what he wanted, whispering promises of love before casting her aside like a forgotten trinket. What he didn't know was that she was no ordinary girl. She was a mermaid spy, sent to uncover his kingdom's greatest secret. What happened next would unleash a curse so powerful it would shake the foundations of his empire, tear his kingdom apart, and drive him to the very edge of madness. Sometimes, the most dangerous enemy is the one whose heart you've shattered. He thought he had conquered a mere servant. Instead, he had betrayed a being who controlled the tides, the storms, and the fate of men. This is the story of how an arrogant prince seduced the wrong woman, how his greatest mistake became his undoing, and how, in the end, the ocean always reclaims what is hers. Just before we dive deeper into this epic tale, we'd love to know where you're watching from. If you're enjoying this story, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, because tomorrow, we've got an extra special story lined up for you, and you definitely won't want to miss it. The kingdom of Zamboro stretched across vast lands, where golden rivers shimmered under the sun and mountains stood as mighty sentinels. The people of Zamboro were known for their strength, their warriors feared across the land. At the heart of this powerful kingdom stood a grand palace, built of ivory and gold, its towers rising high into the sky. Inside this palace lived Prince Baku, the only son of King Okai and Queen Tarila. He was a warrior, born into battle, raised with sword and spear. His skin was the color of deep earth, his muscles strong from years of training, and his eyes burned like fire. But there was one thing that set Baku apart from all other men, his pride. "Love is for the weak," he often said, laughing when the nobleman spoke of marriage. He believed in war, in power, in victory. Women were like trophies to him, something to take and discard without thought. His father, King Okai, was growing old, and the kingdom was preparing for war. The Kundu Empire, a powerful naval kingdom across the sea, had been threatening Zamboro's trade routes. War was coming, and Baku was ready. On the eve of battle, the palace was filled with warriors, strategists, and nobles, discussing war plans deep into the night. Baku, restless, stepped out into the moonlit gardens for fresh air. That was when he saw her. A girl, standing by the palace fountain. She was dressed in simple robes, her dark curls cascading down her back, her skin glowing under the moonlight. Her eyes, deep and mysterious, reflected the water's light. Baku had never seen her before. "Who are you?" he asked, stepping closer. The girl turned, her gaze meeting his. "A humble servant, my prince," she said softly, bowing her head. Baku studied her. There was something different about her, something that made his heart race. She was not like the other palace maids. "What is your name?" he asked. "Nia," she whispered. The way she said it, the way her lips formed the words, made Baku shiver. He had never felt this before. He was used to women throwing themselves at him, but Nia, she was different. She did not try to please him. She did not giggle or flatter. She simply stood there, calm, confident, mysterious. "Come," he said, reaching out his hand. Nia hesitated. She had a mission. She had been sent here by the Kundu Empire to spy on the palace, to learn its naval secrets before the war began. She knew she should not get involved. But there was something about Baku. He was dangerous. He was powerful. And Nia had always been drawn to danger. So, she took his hand. That night, under the shadow of war, Prince Baku whispered promises in her ear, spoke of love and forever. He kissed her beneath the stars, held her close as if she was his world. And Nia, against her better judgment, let herself believe him. But by morning, Baku was gone. When she woke, she was alone. The words he had whispered had turned to dust. She had been nothing more than a conquest. Her heart shattered. But Nia was no ordinary girl. She was a mermaid, a child of the sea, a daughter of the Kundu Empire's ocean priests. She had the power of water running through her veins. And she had been betrayed. Standing by the edge of the great Zamboro River, she let her sorrow turn to fury. She closed her eyes and spoke the words that would change Baku's fate forever. "Prince Baku, you will love only once, and it will be a love you can never have." The winds howled. The water trembled. The sky darkened. The curse had been set. And Nia, her heart turned to stone, disappeared into the waves. Baku awoke feeling restless. The war had begun. He had no time to think of last night, no time to dwell on the soft whispers of a servant girl. By midday, he was at the war council, preparing for battle. The Kundu Empire's ships had been sighted on the coast, their warriors ready to attack. Baku was fierce, fearless. He led his men into battle, fighting like a lion, cutting down enemies without hesitation. For 5 years, the war raged. For 5 years, Baku conquered. Until, at last, Zamboro stood victorious. But the victory came at a cost. The war had changed him. He was no longer just the arrogant prince, he had become a ruthless king. His father, King Okai, had died during the war, leaving Baku to rule. The people feared him. His enemies trembled. But something was missing. No matter how many battles he won, no matter how much power he gained, an emptiness gnawed at him. And then, one day, his advisors came with a proposal. "My king," they said, "to secure our kingdom's future, you must marry. The princess of Zana, daughter of the great naval empire, has been offered to you." Baku agreed. He did not believe in love, but he believed in power. A marriage with Princess Senna would strengthen Zamboro. The wedding was arranged. The kingdom prepared for celebration. But then, it happened. One evening, as Baku walked through the palace gardens, he saw her. A woman, sitting by the fountain. She wore a flowing blue dress, her dark curls glistening like ocean waves. Her eyes were deep and familiar, her lips curved in the smallest of smiles. His heart stopped. Something inside him stirred. He had seen her before. But where? She looked up, meeting his gaze. "It has been a long time, my king," she said softly. And then, Baku knew. It was Nia. The servant girl. The one he had seduced. The one he had abandoned. The one he could never have. His curse had begun. Baku stood frozen. The woman before him, her presence was like a storm, silent yet powerful. The gentle ripples of the fountain reflected her dark eyes, deep as the ocean. "It has been a long time, my king," she said again, her voice calm, yet laced with something Baku could not quite grasp. His mind raced. He knew this face. Knew those lips, that gaze, that unshakable stillness. "Nia," he whispered. She smiled. It was not a smile of warmth, nor of affection. It was knowing. It was patient. "You remember me," she said. It was not a question. Baku took a step forward, as if to confirm that she was real. "How?" he asked, his voice rough. He had abandoned her years ago, left her behind like a forgotten dream. She had been a mere servant. And yet, she stood before him, unchanged by time. Or perhaps, he realized with unease, changed in ways he could not see. "Does it matter?" Nia asked, tilting her head slightly. The air between them was thick with tension. "Where have you been?" he demanded. Nia chuckled softly. "In the depths where you left me," she said. Something inside Baku clenched. He did not understand why his chest ached at her words. He was a king. He had seen war, conquered lands, taken whatever he wanted. And yet, this woman, this servant girl he had discarded, stood before him, untouched by his power. She turned to leave. Panic shot through him. "Wait," he said, stepping forward, reaching for her arm. The moment his fingers brushed her skin, a sharp pain tore through his chest. His breath hitched. His body stiffened. It was as if his heart was being ripped from his ribs. He stumbled back, gasping. Nia watched him with quiet amusement. "Be careful, my king," she said softly. "Not all things belong to you." And with that, she was gone. Baku stood there, his heart pounding, his breath heavy. For the first time in his life, he felt afraid. That night, Baku could not sleep. He tossed and turned, haunted by the image of Nia's eyes, by the whisper of her voice. He told himself it was nothing. "She is just a woman," he muttered. Yet, he could not shake the feeling that something had changed. The next morning, as he sat in the royal court, listening to his advisors speak of the upcoming wedding, his mind was elsewhere. "King Baku, do you agree to the terms of the alliance?" one of the elders asked. Baku barely heard them. "My king." His head snapped up. "Yes," he said quickly. The room fell silent. The elder exchanged glances with the others before speaking carefully. "You are to marry Princess Senna in 5 days, he reminded Baku. "I know," Baku said impatiently. But in truth, he had forgotten. His mind was consumed by her. By the way Nia had stood by the fountain, untouched by time. By the way his heart had burned when she spoke. By the way she had disappeared, leaving only her voice in his ears. He clenched his fists. "This is madness," he muttered to himself. He was a king. He had control over everything. Why, then, was he so powerless against this feeling? Why, when he closed his eyes, could he only see her? Days passed. And with each passing moment, Baku's obsession with Nia grew. He searched the palace for her. "Have you seen a woman with dark curls and eyes like the night?" he asked his guards. They all shook their heads. No one had seen her. It was as if she had appeared only for him. Like a phantom. A curse. By the 3rd day, Baku could barely focus on his duties. He had never wanted anything this much. Not land. Not power. Not even victory in battle. This was different. This was need. A hunger that burned him from the inside. He had to find her. But Nia did not want to be found. And the more he searched, the more the kingdom began to crumble. His advisors noticed his distraction. His soldiers whispered. His betrothed, Princess Senna, grew furious. "You are a king," she snapped one evening. "And yet, you act like a fool chasing a shadow." Baku barely heard her. His heart was already lost. And the kingdom, once strong, began to fall apart. As Baku chased a woman he could never have, his enemies rose against him. His obsession had left his court vulnerable. His rivals saw the cracks in his kingdom. And rebellion ignited. "The king is weak," the whispers spread through the land. "He is bewitched." His once loyal allies turned against him. His own people doubted him. And Princess Senna, enraged by his neglect, called off the wedding. "You are cursed," she spat. "And I will not be part of your downfall." With that, she sailed back to her kingdom. The alliance was broken. Baku had lost everything. And still, he could not let go of her. One night, as the kingdom burned with rebellion, Baku returned to the fountain. And there she was. Standing at the water's edge, waiting. "Why?" Baku whispered. "What have you done to me?" Nia turned, her expression unreadable. "You do not remember?" she asked. Baku's heart pounded. "Remember what?" Nia stepped forward, placing a gentle hand on his chest. "The night before the war," she whispered. "When you whispered love you did not mean. When you promised forever and left me with nothing." Baku's breath caught. "Nia." No, she interrupted. Her eyes darkened. Not Nia. Not anymore. The air trembled. The waters stirred. And suddenly, Baku saw her for who she truly was. Not a servant girl. Not a lost lover. But a mermaid. A daughter of the sea. And the curse she had placed upon him had finally come full circle. He had fallen in love. A love he could never have. And his kingdom would pay the price. Baku staggered back. Nia, no, the woman he thought was Nia, stood before him, no longer the quiet servant girl he once discarded. Her presence was overwhelming, her skin shimmering like moonlit waves, her dark curls dancing in the wind. "You are not human," Baku whispered. Nia smiled. "No," she said. "And yet, you gave your heart to me." Baku's chest tightened. He could not deny it. His heart, his very soul, belonged to her. Yet she was a creature of the sea. A woman he could never have. The curse was real. And the kingdom of Zamboro was paying the price. All around him, his empire crumbled. The people had turned against him. His allies had abandoned him. His enemies were at the gates. And all because he had chased a love he could never possess. But still, he could not let go. "Nia, please." She tilted her head. "I gave you a chance once, Baku," she said softly. "But you chose yourself. You chose your pride. And now, your kingdom burns." Baku clenched his fists. "Then end it," he roared. "Break the curse." Nia's eyes darkened. "It is not that simple." The wind howled. The fountain waters rose around them, twisting like serpents. "There is only one way to be free, Baku," she whispered. "But are you willing to pay the price?" Baku's breath hitched. "What price?" Nia stepped closer. "Your throne." Silence. The words slammed into him like a blade. His throne. His crown. The power he had spent his entire life fighting for. "Surrender Zamboro," Nia said, "and the curse will be broken." Baku's heart twisted. He had fought wars. Conquered lands. Buried his own father. And now, he was being asked to give it all away. For love. For a love he had ruined. A love he could never truly have. The choice lay before him. His kingdom. Or his heart. And as the fires of rebellion burned around him, Baku knew. Fate would not wait much longer. Baku staggered through the palace halls. His mind was a storm. His advisors were gone. His soldiers had turned against him. And outside the palace gates, the people of Zamboro shouted his name, but not in praise. "The king has fallen. He has brought ruin upon us. End his rule." Baku clutched his sword. He could still fight. He could still win. But would victory mean anything if his heart was lost forever? Baku. He turned. Nia stood at the edge of the great palace balcony, her gown flowing like sea foam, her eyes unreadable. "Choose," she whispered. Baku swallowed hard. "If I surrender," he asked, "what happens to me?" Nia's gaze did not waver. "You will lose everything," she said. "Your throne. Your power. Your name." Baku's fingers curled around his sword hilt. His entire life had been built on power. On being king. If he gave it up, who would he be? The palace doors burst open. Baku's enemies had arrived. Rebels flooded the throne room, torches in hand, weapons gleaming. At their lead was General Tano, once Baku's most loyal commander. Now, his greatest enemy. "It is over, Baku." Tano roared. "Your people have turned against you. Your allies have abandoned you. The kingdom no longer needs a cursed king. Baku lifted his sword. I am still your king, he snarled. Tano laughed. Not for much longer. The warriors charged. Baku fought like a lion, his blade a blur of silver. He cut down one enemy, then another, his body moving with the grace of a war god. But there were too many. A spear slashed his arm. A blade grazed his cheek. He was bleeding. Weakening. And in the chaos, his eyes found her. Nia stood at the edge of the battlefield, watching. Waiting. His choice still lingered. Surrender, she whispered. Baku's chest heaved. The throne room shook as the rebels advanced. He had seconds. Only seconds. And in those final moments, he closed his eyes and made his decision. With a deep, shuddering breath, he let go. Baku dropped his sword. The clang of metal rang through the air like a death toll. Silence fell. The rebels froze. Tano's eyes widened. You surrender, he asked, disbelief in his voice. Baku nodded. I am no longer your king. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Tano hesitated, then lowered his weapon. The battle was over. Zamboro had fallen. And Baku was free. But at what cost? The kingdom no longer belonged to him. His palace, his lands, his people. All had been lost. Baku stood at the edge of the great Zamboro River, watching the water churn beneath the full moon. Behind him, the city still burned. Ahead of him, the waves called. Nia stood beside him, silent. What now? He asked, his voice raw. Nia gazed at him, her eyes filled with something he could not name. Now, you are free, she whispered. Baku let out a bitter laugh. I have lost everything, he muttered. Nia stepped closer. Not everything, she said. She reached out, her fingers brushing his. And for the first time, her touch did not burn him. The curse had lifted. But the price had been paid. And now, there was only one path left. Nia turned to the river. Without hesitation, she stepped into the water. Baku hesitated. He looked back at his ruined kingdom. His past. His sins. And then, he stepped forward. The waves rose. The water swallowed him whole. And as Zamboro faded behind him, Prince Baku, the arrogant king who had once ruled with pride, vanished into legend. But the story was not over. Because the sea does not forgive. And fate was not done with him yet. The water swallowed Baku. Cold. Endless. Unforgiving. His body tumbled through the currents, his lungs burning as he sank deeper into the unknown. The moonlight faded, replaced by darkness. The weight of his past, his failures, his broken kingdom pressed upon him like the depths of the sea itself. Was this death? Would he simply dissolve into nothingness, forgotten like the countless warriors lost to the ocean? But just as his mind began to drift, a hand seized his wrist. Nia. Her grip was strong, unyielding. She pulled him forward, guiding him through the abyss. Strangely, he did not choke. He did not drown. He could breathe. His limbs no longer felt heavy. And then, the darkness parted. A vast city stretched before him beneath the ocean's surface, glowing like an underwater star. Nyazari. The kingdom of the merfolk. A world he had once dismissed as legend. A world that now held his fate. Baku's feet touched the soft ocean floor, but it felt as solid as land beneath him. The streets of Nyazari shimmered with silver-blue light. Coral towers spiraled toward the surface, their windows pulsing like beating hearts. Schools of fish weaved between the structures, glowing with soft bioluminescence. He turned to Nia. "What is this place?" he whispered. Your new home, she said simply. Baku stiffened. I never agreed to stay. Nia arched an eyebrow. You stepped into the water of your own free will. You belong to the sea now. Her voice was unreadable, neither cruel nor kind. Baku clenched his fists. Then why am I not dead? Nia's lips curled into a faint smile. Because the ocean does not waste what is still useful. Before he could demand answers, a new voice echoed through the water. You brought a human into Nyazari, sister. Baku turned sharply. A tall figure drifted toward them, broad-shouldered, dark-skinned, with piercing silver eyes that gleamed like polished pearls. He wore a crown of seashells, his chest bare except for a swirling tattoo that pulsed with an eerie blue glow. A prince. Or perhaps, a king. He is no ordinary human, Keanu, Nia said smoothly. This is Baku, former ruler of Zamboro. The merman's eyes narrowed. Former. Nia nodded. He has lost everything. And now, the ocean will decide his fate. Keanu studied Baku. Then, without warning, he smiled. Then let the trials begin. Baku's stomach dropped. Trials. Nia did not answer. She only turned away, swimming toward the towering palace ahead. And as Keanu's warriors closed in around him, Baku realized. He was no longer a king. He was a prisoner. And the ocean's judgment had only just begun. Baku gritted his teeth as two merfolk warriors seized his arms, their grip like iron. He struggled, but his strength was nothing compared to theirs. They dragged him through the glowing city, past towering coral spires and streets paved with glistening seashells. Above him, the ocean ceiling rippled with shifting light, and strange, shimmering creatures drifted in the currents like silent sentinels. The deeper they went, the colder the water became. Finally, they reached a massive, circular arena carved from black stone. The walls were covered in ancient carvings, merfolk history etched into the sea itself. A crowd had gathered. Merfolk of all ages watched from the stands, their glowing eyes fixed on him. And at the center of it all, seated on a throne carved from a single colossal pearl, was King Odorin, ruler of Nyazari. He was ancient yet powerful, his dark skin gleaming like polished obsidian. A golden crown of woven seaweed and coral rested upon his silver dreadlocks, and his piercing eyes seemed to look through Baku's very soul. At his side stood Nia, her face unreadable. And beside her, Keanu, her brother, the Prince of Nyazari. King Odorin raised a hand. The arena fell silent. Baku of Zamboro, his voice rumbled like a distant storm, filling every corner of the vast space. You have entered the domain of Nyazari. You have walked away from your kingdom. But the ocean does not grant sanctuary so easily. Baku lifted his chin, refusing to look weak. Then what do you want from me? He demanded. The king's lips curled into a slow smile. You wish to remain in the sea. You must prove you are worthy. Baku's heart pounded. Worthy? Of what? Keanu stepped forward, his silver eyes gleaming with amusement. Survival. A massive stone gate rumbled open, revealing a dark passageway leading into the abyss. The water beyond was pitch black, swallowing all light. Baku swallowed hard. What is in there? Nia finally spoke. The trial of the abyss. Baku clenched his fists. And if I refuse? King Odorin's voice was calm, merciless. Then the ocean will take you. One way or another. A shiver ran down Baku's spine. He had no choice. If he wanted to live, he had to face whatever waited in the abyss. Taking a deep breath, he stepped forward. And the darkness closed around him. The passage was silent. Too silent. Baku's footsteps echoed against the cold stone as he moved deeper into the tunnel. Strange shapes drifted in the darkness, shifting in and out of sight. The walls were lined with eerie carvings of twisted merfolk, their eyes hollow, their mouths frozen in silent screams. The deeper he went, the colder it became. Then, a sound. A low, whispering voice. Baku. His blood ran cold. He turned sharply, sword raised. But there was nothing. Only shadows. Then, the voice returned. Do you know why you are here? It wasn't Nia's voice. It wasn't the king's. It was something ancient. Something watching him from the dark. Baku's pulse thundered in his ears. Show yourself, he growled. A shape emerged from the blackness. At first, it looked human. A man, tall and proud, with the bearing of a warrior. But then Baku saw its eyes. Empty. Hollow. Like twin pools of ink, pulling him in. The figure smiled, revealing a row of sharp, jagged teeth. I was once a prince, too, it whispered. Until I lost everything. Baku took a step back, heart pounding. Who are you? He demanded. The creature tilted its head. I am what you will become, if you fail. Then, the shadows came alive. Hands, hundreds of them, grasping, reaching, pulling him into the abyss. Baku struggled, swinging his sword, but the darkness swallowed his blade. You abandoned your kingdom, the voices hissed. You are nothing. You are lost. Cold fingers clawed at his throat. His vision blurred. His breath faltered. Was this the end? Would he be swallowed by the abyss, forgotten like the cursed souls before him? No. He was Baku. Prince of Zamboro. He would not fall so easily. With a roar, he tore free from the shadows, pushing forward with every ounce of strength. The darkness screamed in protest. And then, suddenly, light. A glowing doorway appeared ahead. Without hesitation, Baku lunged through it. And the abyss vanished. Baku stumbled forward, gasping for breath. The arena reappeared around him, the cheers of the merfolk echoing in his ears. He had survived. The trial of the abyss was over. King Odorin watched him, his expression unreadable. Kiano smirked. Nia's eyes lingered on his face, something unreadable in her gaze. Then, the king spoke. You have passed the first trial. Baku wiped sweat from his brow. How many more? He asked, his voice hoarse. King Odorin's lips curled into a knowing smile. 3 remain. Baku's stomach sank. He was not free yet. And the ocean was far from done with him. Baku stood in the center of the great arena, his breath still ragged from the horrors of the abyss. He had survived the first trial, but 3 remained. High above him, King Odorin's expression was calm, unreadable. Nia stood beside him, her face as distant as the tides, while Kiano watched with an amused smirk. You have conquered the abyss, the king declared, his voice echoing through the water. But a ruler is not measured by endurance alone. At his signal, the warriors who had dragged Baku into the arena stepped forward again. This time, they were not here to guard him. They were here to fight him. Your second trial is strength, Odorin announced. You will face 5 of my warriors. You must prove yourself worthy of the sea's power. The crowd cheered. Baku's pulse quickened. These were not ordinary fighters. These were merfolk, stronger, faster, deadlier than any human warrior. He had no armor. No weapons. Only his wits and his will to survive. The warriors circled him. The trial had begun. The first warrior. A massive mare warrior lunged forward, his trident flashing like lightning. Baku dodged, barely avoiding the strike. He lashed out with a kick, but his opponent barely flinched. Then, wham! A powerful blow struck Baku's ribs, sending him tumbling across the arena floor. Pain exploded through his body. He gritted his teeth. He would not fall. As the warrior came again, Baku ducked low, and when the trident struck, he grabbed hold of the weapon, twisting it violently. The warrior lost his grip. And in one smooth motion, Baku flipped the trident and drove the blunt end into his opponent's stomach. The mere warrior collapsed, knocked unconscious. The crowd roared. But there were 4 more to go. The second and third warriors. 2 merfolk warriors attacked at once. Baku fought like a man possessed. He dodged, twisted, countered, using their strength against them. He disarmed the second warrior with a clever feint, then knocked him out cold with a well-placed strike to the jaw. The third warrior was faster, circling Baku with deadly grace, his blades dancing like water. Baku waited, then struck with sudden ferocity, using the merfolk's own momentum against him. Another fell. The fourth warrior. This one was different. He was smiling. And when he attacked, Baku understood why. This warrior was not only strong, he was a master of the currents. His movements were effortless, his body shifting through the water like an eel. Baku fought with all he had, but every punch, every kick, every counter was met with nothing but empty water. "You cannot defeat the sea," the warrior whispered. And then, crack! A devastating blow to Baku's side sent him crashing to the floor. Pain shot through his ribs. He gasped for breath. The world blurred. He was going to lose. He was going to fail. Then, a memory. His father's voice. "A king does not fight the storm, Baku. He bends it to his will." Baku's eyes snapped open. He watched his opponent move, how the warrior flowed like the water itself. And Baku stopped fighting against it. Instead of resisting, he moved with the current. He let himself fall, then twisted like a wave, using the warrior's own force to strike back. The moment his opponent faltered, Baku struck hard and fast. The warrior collapsed. The crowd erupted. One more remained. The final warrior, Kiano. Baku barely had time to catch his breath before Kiano stepped forward. The Prince of Nyazari. His silver eyes gleamed with amusement. "You fight well, human," Kiano said, cracking his knuckles. "But you are not ready for me." Baku wiped blood from his lip. "We'll see about that." And the fight began. Kiano was faster than all the others combined. His first blow sent Baku reeling. His second nearly knocked him unconscious. Baku had never fought someone this strong before. Kiano wasn't just powerful, he was merciless. "This is pointless," Kiano muttered as he dodged Baku's attacks with ease. "You do not belong here, human." Baku gritted his teeth. "I will not yield." Kiano's smirk vanished. "Then you will break." And he attacked like a storm. Fists, elbows, knees, a relentless onslaught that battered Baku from every side. The world spun. His body screamed in protest. He couldn't win. But then, he saw an opening. Kiano always led with his left. A pattern. A weakness. Baku feigned exhaustion, letting Kiano believe he had won. The prince lunged in for the final blow. And at the last second, Baku dropped low, twisting around him. He snatched Kiano's arm and, using the prince's own momentum, slammed him into the ground. The arena fell silent. Kiano's eyes widened. Baku pressed his knee against Kiano's back, locking him in place. He had won. The silence shattered as the crowd roared. King Odorin rose to his feet. His voice boomed through the arena. "You have passed the second trial." Baku staggered to his feet, dizzy with pain, but he did not fall. He had conquered the trial of strength. But as he met Nia's gaze, he knew. The hardest trials were still ahead. King Odorin's voice carried through the water. A ruler must not only be strong but also wise. A great stone table was brought into the arena, its surface carved with ancient symbols. Nia finally stepped forward, her eyes cold and knowing. "The trial of wisdom is simple," she said. "You must solve the riddle of the sea. A test of mind, not body." Baku exhaled sharply. He had survived the abyss. He had survived the warriors. But could he survive Nia's mind? She leaned forward, her voice a whisper that only he could hear. "Let us see if you can outthink the sea, my prince." Baku stood before the great stone table, his body bruised but his mind sharper than ever. The arena had fallen into an eerie silence, the excited murmurs of the crowd replaced by a heavy anticipation. The table was carved with ancient symbols, spiraling patterns that seemed to shift as the water around them moved. In the center sat three objects, a seashell, a pearl, and a small, flickering flame enclosed in glass. Nia stepped forward. Her expression was unreadable, but her eyes held a challenge. "This is the trial of wisdom," she said, her voice carrying through the water. "To pass, you must answer a simple question." She reached out, trailing her fingers over the objects. "The sea has three children, one who sings, one who hides, and one who dances." Her gaze locked onto his. "Which child belongs to the ocean?" A riddle. Baku's mind raced. Three objects. Three choices. The seashell, which carried the song of the waves. The pearl, hidden inside the oyster's shell. And the flame, which flickered even in water, seeming to defy the very nature of the sea. He clenched his fists. This was not a test of strength. This was a test of understanding. The merfolk watched in expectant silence. Keanu smirked from the side, arms crossed. King Odorin sat motionless on his pearl throne. Nia's face revealed nothing. Baku reached toward the seashell, then hesitated. "One who sings, one who hides, one who dances." Singing, waves crashing against the shore. Hiding, a pearl in its shell, waiting to be discovered. Dancing, water, always moving, shifting, alive. His eyes flicked to the flame. It should not burn underwater. Yet it did. And then, understanding struck him like a lightning bolt. He looked up at Nia, a slow smile spreading across his face. "The child who dances," he said, reaching for the flame. The crowd gasped. Nia's lips parted in surprise. Even King Odorin raised an eyebrow. Baku held the flickering flame up to the light. "The sea is always moving, always shifting, always changing. It cannot be held, cannot be caged. It is alive, unpredictable." His gaze swept over the watching merfolk. "It is the flame that burns even beneath the water." Silence. Then, the ground trembled. The carvings on the table lit up, glowing with a soft blue light. King Odorin slowly nodded, his expression unreadable. "You have chosen well, Baku of Zamboro." The arena erupted in cheers. The trial of wisdom was won. But Nia. She was still staring at him, something unreadable in her gaze. And for the first time, Baku wondered. Had he truly won? Or had he just stepped deeper into the trap of fate? Baku barely had time to catch his breath before the final trial was announced. King Odorin rose from his throne. "Strength you have proven. Wisdom you have shown. But there is one test left, the greatest of them all." The crowd fell into hushed silence. The trial of the heart. Baku felt a shiver run down his spine. A test of the heart. He had faced war. He had endured betrayal. He had even defied the curse placed upon him years ago. What else could the ocean take from him? Then Nia stepped forward. And Baku's heart stopped. "For the final trial," she said softly, "you must make a choice." She turned, and from the shadows, two figures emerged. Baku's blood ran cold. One was General Dano, his most trusted commander, the men who had fought beside him in battle. His hands were bound, his face bruised, but his eyes burned with defiance. The other was Princess Zara, his betrothed, the woman he was supposed to marry to save his kingdom. Her golden skin shimmered under the water, her dark eyes filled with anger and betrayal. Two people. One trial. Choose, Baku, Nia whispered. Who will live, and who will die? The ocean roared around him. Baku's chest tightened. This was worse than any battle. Worse than any abyss. If he chose Zara, his kingdom might still be saved. But he would be condemning the men who had stood by him since childhood. If he chose Dano, he would betray his duty. He would doom his people. And yet, there was something in Nia's eyes. A glimmer of sadness. As if she knew something he did not. Baku's fists clenched. His mind raced. Was there a way to save them both? Or was this fate finally forcing him to pay the price of his past sins? The water shook. The merfolk waited. And Baku knew. Whatever choice he made, there was no turning back. Baku took a slow breath. His mind screamed for him to choose Zara. His heart whispered Dano. But something inside him, something deeper, told him the answer was neither. This was not a test of sacrifice. This was a test of who he truly was. He turned his gaze to Nia. You were the one who cursed me, weren't you? The words hung in the water like a shadow. Nia didn't flinch. You will love only once, she murmured, and it will be with someone you can never have. Baku felt the weight of those words settle in his chest. The curse had never been about losing his kingdom. It had been about losing her. His choice had been made years ago, the moment he betrayed her heart. Now he had to break the cycle. He stepped forward. And did the unthinkable. He let go. I refuse, he said. The arena fell silent. King Odoran's expression hardened. What did you say? Baku lifted his chin. I will not choose. I will not let the ocean control me. His voice rose. If the sea demands a price, then let it take me instead. Nia gasped. The merfolk stirred. And the ocean itself rumbled in response. For the first time, Baku saw something flicker in Nia's eyes. A glimmer of something almost like fear. The water shook violently, the arena splitting open beneath him. And suddenly, the sea dragged him down into the abyss once more. Darkness swallowed Baku as the ocean dragged him into its depths. The roar of the crowd faded, replaced by the deafening silence of the abyss. His body tumbled like a leaf caught in a storm, pulled by unseen currents. The deeper he sank, the colder it became. Pressure crushed his chest, but it was not just the water that threatened to break him. It was the weight of his past. His arrogance. His betrayal. His curse. Then, a flash of movement. Something swam beside him. Something fast. Something ancient. A shadow with glowing eyes. Baku's pulse pounded. He reached for his sword, only to realize it was gone. He was unarmed. Defenseless. And then, the whisper came. You cannot fight the ocean, Prince Baku. The voice slithered through the water, both near and impossibly distant. Baku twisted, searching for the source. Then, the shadow emerged. A massive form, twice his size, scaled and armored, its long tail coiling like a serpent. A face half hidden behind a golden mask, but the mouth that spoke was unmistakable. You should have chosen, boy. King Odoran. Baku's breath hitched. The merfolk king had followed him into the abyss. And in his hand, he held a staff of black coral, its tip pulsing with dark energy. You think you can defy the sea? Odoran's voice was smooth, almost amused. You think love will save you? Baku gritted his teeth. I think you fear me. The king laughed, a deep, rumbling sound. I do not fear mortals. But I do enjoy breaking them. With a flick of his staff, the water around Baku hardened into chains, tightening around his arms and legs. Pain shot through him. He struggled, but the ocean itself held him captive. Odorin floated closer, his golden mask gleaming. You should have died long ago, Baku. You were meant to be nothing more than a pawn in our war. Baku's mind reeled. What are you talking about? Odorin's grin widened. Your kingdom was never meant to survive. The word struck like a blade. Baku froze. His mind raced back, to the war, to the betrayals, to the enemy fleets that always seemed one step ahead. The naval empire. The failed alliances. The curse. It had all been part of something bigger. You were doomed before you were even born, Odorin said, his voice thick with amusement. Your father's kingdom, your entire bloodline, was marked for ruin the day your people set foot on our shores. A chilling realization settled over Baku. This was never just about revenge. This was about annihilation. And he had played into their hands from the beginning. The rage in his chest ignited. He had been a fool once. Blinded by arrogance. Consumed by desire. But not anymore. He would not be their pawn. With a roar, Baku twisted against the chains, summoning every ounce of strength he had left. And for the first time, the ocean answered him. A wave of raw energy burst from within him, shattering the chains, sending a shockwave rippling through the abyss. Odorin's eyes widened in shock. And then, the ocean trembled. Something ancient and powerful stirred in the deep. And Baku realized. He was no longer just a prince. Something inside him had changed. And for the first time, the merfolk king looked at him not with amusement, but with fear. The water shook around them, a force deeper than the abyss itself awakening from its slumber. Baku floated, his chest heaving, heart pounding like a war drum. He felt different. Power pulsed beneath his skin, his veins humming with energy, as if the ocean itself had answered his defiance. Odorin's golden eyes narrowed, his grip tightening around his black coral staff. What have you done, mortal? Baku's hands clenched into fists. The chains that once held him lay shattered in the water, dissolving like mist. I don't know, he admitted. But it looks like you're afraid to find out. Odorin's expression darkened. With a flick of his wrist, the staff glowed with malevolent energy, and the water around them hardened into jagged spears. Power means nothing without control, Baku. The spears rushed toward him, sharp as the teeth of a great sea beast. Baku raised his hands, acting on instinct. And the moment he did, the water obeyed. A powerful current surged around him, spiraling like a shield, shattering the spears before they could reach him. Odorin's lips curled into a sneer. Interesting. Baku barely had time to react before the king vanished, moving through the water like a shadow. A moment later, pain exploded across Baku's back. He was sent hurtling through the abyss, crashing into an outcrop of coral, the sharp edges cutting into his skin. Bubbles rushed from his mouth, his vision blurring for a moment. Odorin loomed above him, his golden mask gleaming like a predator's eye. You are nothing but a child playing in the deep. He swung his staff, the black coral sparking with dark magic. Baku barely dodged in time, rolling away as the blast split the seabed in half, sending a shockwave of destruction through the abyss. He gritted his teeth. This was no ordinary battle. This was a war between the old and the new. Between a king who ruled the sea, and the men it had just chosen instead. Baku felt it. The pull of the ocean, the whisper in the currents. It wanted him to fight. To become something more. And he would not deny it. With a deep breath, he let go of his fear. and surrendered himself to the sea. Far above, the ocean raged. Nia stood at the edge of the palace balcony, her heart pounding in her chest. Something had changed in the water. A shift so powerful, so ancient, that even the elders whispered in fear. She knew what it meant. Baku had awakened the power of the sea itself. "It's happening," she whispered. Beside her, Keanu, the merfolk general, let out a low growl. This was not part of the plan. If the ocean has chosen him, then we have no control anymore. Her fingers tightened around the pearl necklace at her throat. She had wanted revenge. She had wanted to see Baku suffer for what he had done to her. But she had never expected this. The curse had been simple: he would love only once, and it would be for someone he could never have. But now the ocean itself had taken interest in him. And that terrified her. Because the last time the ocean had chosen a mortal, it destroyed an entire kingdom. The ocean was alive. It pulsed through Baku's veins, a force both ancient and uncontrollable. He could feel it, the currents responding to his every thought, every breath. It whispered to him in a language older than time itself. Odor encircled him like a shark sensing blood. "You do not understand what you are meddling with, boy." His voice was calm, but there was something else beneath it. Fear. Baku's lips curled into a smirk. "Then teach me, old man." With that, he thrust out his hand, not even knowing what he was doing. And the ocean answered his call. A massive surge of water spiraled from his palm, twisting and turning, forming a spear of pure energy. Odorin's eyes widened. But he was fast. With a flick of his wrist, he raised his black coral staff, summoning a barrier of shadows. The spear collided, sending a ripple of force through the abyss. The seabed cracked, ancient coral structures crumbling. For the first time, Baku saw doubt flicker in Odorin's golden eyes. "Impossible," the merfolk king murmured. Baku could only grin. "I don't need to understand it." He raised his hands, feeling the sea pulse around him. "I just need to use it." And with that, he launched himself forward, the water bending around him, turning him into a force of nature. The battle had truly begun. Far above, Nia stood frozen. She watched the ocean rage, watched the water twist and shift unnaturally, as though it were alive. She had never seen anything like it. "This is wrong," she whispered. Keanu's sharp gaze flicked to her. "The king will handle him. He is nothing but a mortal playing in a realm beyond his understanding." But Nia knew better. This was not just power. This was the ocean choosing. And when the ocean chose a mortal, it always came with a price. A heavy, devastating price. Her fingers tightened around the railing. She had set this in motion. Her curse had done this. She had wanted him to suffer. To pay for what he had done. But not like this. Not like this. She turned on her heel, her decision already made. "Where are you going?" Keanu demanded. "To end this." And before he could stop her, she dove into the sea. Chapter 27, The Sea's Judgment. The ocean was no longer just water. It was war. Baku and Odorin clashed beneath the waves, each strike sending tremors through the deep. Odorin was powerful. He had ruled the sea for centuries. But Baku was becoming something else entirely. Something new. Something unpredictable. He could see the currents before they moved. He could feel the sea creatures around him, hear their thoughts, their warnings. He was not just fighting with the ocean. He was becoming part of it. Odorin snarled. "You think this power makes you a god?" Baku smirked, dodging another attack. "I think it makes me your problem." The merfolk king roared in fury, summoning a wave of pure darkness, meant to crush Baku in one final blow. Baku braced himself. And then she appeared. Nia. She swam between them, her arms outstretched. Enough. The ocean shuddered at her command. The darkness vanished. And for the first time, silence filled the abyss. Baku and Odorin both stared at her. Her eyes burned with power, with rage, with something even deeper. "This ends now," she said, her voice like the waves themselves. And the ocean listened. Nia's voice echoed through the abyss, her presence stopping the battle as if the ocean itself had willed it. The current stilled, the water hummed, and for a brief moment, all was silent. Baku, still brimming with newfound power, hovered in the water, his chest heaving. He had felt unstoppable, until she appeared. Odorin, the mighty merfolk king, clenched his staff tightly. His golden eyes burned with fury, but even he did not dare to move. Not when Nia commanded the ocean's attention. "You have both gone too far," Nia said, her voice low but filled with an unshakable power. "This war was never meant to be fought like this." Odorin's lips curled. "You overstep, girl." But she did not flinch. "No, you did. You wanted to destroy his kingdom." She turned to Baku. "And you let your pride lead you into the abyss." Baku frowned, his eyes narrowing. "I did what I had to do." "Did you?" Nia's gaze pierced through him. "Or did you simply refuse to face the truth?" His hands curled into fists, but for the first time, doubt flickered in his heart. What was the truth? Had he really been fighting for his kingdom, or had he been fighting for himself? Odorin let out a low growl. Enough of this. He lifted his staff, the dark energy crackling once more. No. Nia raised her hands. And the ocean answered. A massive force exploded from her, sending ripples of power through the water. The seabed shook. Ancient ruins buried in the sand rose once more. Creatures of the deep gathered, watching in silent reverence. Odorin froze. For the first time, true fear flashed in his golden eyes. "What have you done?" he whispered. Nia turned to Baku, her expression unreadable. "The curse is not finished." Baku's heart stopped. "What do you mean?" She took a deep breath, and when she spoke, her words sealed his fate. "You have one last choice, Baku." She lifted her hand. And the ocean rippled with power. Baku felt his heart hammering in his chest. "What choice?" he asked cautiously. Nia's gaze was unwavering. "You can end this now. Walk away from the throne, from the war, from everything. Surrender to the sea, and your curse will be broken." Baku's breath caught. His throne. His kingdom. Everything he had bled for, fought for, suffered for. Could he really abandon it? "And if I don't?" His voice was barely a whisper. Nia's eyes darkened. "Then you will never know peace." The words cut deeper than any blade ever could. He knew she was telling the truth. He had already begun to lose himself. His obsession, his anger, his hunger for power, it had consumed him. And it would never stop. Not unless he let go. But could he? He turned, looking at the kingdom above, the place he had once called home. It was already falling apart. His enemies gathered at its borders. His people feared him. Had he already lost everything? Odorin's voice cut through his thoughts. "Do not listen to her, boy." His grip on his staff was tight, his expression desperate. "You are powerful now. You can still win." Baku hesitated. Power. Victory. But at what cost? His gaze drifted back to Nia. She was watching him closely, waiting. For once in his life, someone was not forcing him to act. This was his decision. His final choice. He closed his eyes. And when he spoke, his voice was steady. "I choose." Baku exhaled slowly. The weight of the ocean pressed around him, the echoes of his past mistakes ringing in his mind. He had spent his whole life chasing power, proving himself, refusing to be controlled. But now, he had nothing left to prove. His choice was clear. His voice was steady as he finally said the words that sealed his fate. "I choose to let go." Odorin stiffened. "You fool." But it was too late. The ocean responded instantly. The currents swirled around Baku, wrapping him in a cocoon of shimmering blue light. It was as if the sea itself was claiming him, pulling him away from the world he once knew. His body felt lighter, his thoughts clearer. And then, his crown shattered. A ripple of power surged through the abyss, carrying his decision to every corner of the ocean and beyond. In the kingdom above, the palace trembled. The royal banners burned away, their golden insignias turning to ash. The throne room cracked, the once grand seat of power crumbling into dust. The kingdom of Baku no longer had a ruler. The war was over before it began. Far above, in the city Baku had once called home, chaos erupted. Nobles screamed as the palace walls began to break apart. The people ran through the streets, their voices rising in confusion. "The king is gone," someone cried. "The warlords are coming." Enemies who had once feared Baku's wrath now marched upon the city, ready to claim it as their own. The kingdom that had stood for centuries was collapsing in a single night. And yet, beneath the sea, Baku felt no sorrow. For the first time in his life, he felt free. He turned to Nia, who watched him carefully, searching his face for regret. "You're not the man you once were," she said softly. Baku nodded. "And yet, I still have no idea what I am now." Nia reached for his hand, her touch gentle but firm. "Then let the ocean decide." The currents pulled them deeper, past the ruins of ancient civilizations long forgotten. Past creatures that had never been seen by mortal eyes. Past the reach of the world above. And finally, into the heart of the ocean itself, where Baku's new fate awaited. Baku no longer felt human. The ocean had changed him, reshaped him. His body was stronger, his skin shimmering with the faintest trace of scales. His senses were sharper, attuned to the pull of the tides, the whispers of the deep. He was no longer a prince of men. He was something else now. Something greater. "What will happen to the kingdom?" he asked. Nia's gaze was distant. "It will crumble. Men will fight over the ruins. Another will rise in your place. But it will never be the same." Baku thought of the people he had once ruled, the land he had once fought for. And for the first time, he realized he did not belong there anymore. "What am I now, Nia?" he asked. She smiled, the glow of the ocean reflecting in her eyes. "You are what you were always meant to be." Baku turned toward the abyss, toward the unknown. And without hesitation, he swam forward, toward his new destiny. Baku swam deeper into the unknown, his heart beating in time with the ocean's rhythm. His human name, his human throne, all of it was gone. But the sea had given him something new, a second chance, a new beginning. Yet, as much as he had abandoned the land had not yet abandoned him. Visions swirled before his eyes, carried by the currents. The kingdom he had forsaken was in ruins. Warlords fought for control, fire raged through the capital, and the people, his people, suffered. He clenched his fists. Could he really just let it all go? "What are you thinking?" Nia's voice pulled him back. He turned to her, watching the way the water flowed effortlessly around her. She had always belonged here. But him. "My kingdom is dying," he admitted. Nia studied him, her gaze unreadable. "It was never truly yours to begin with." Baku flinched. He wanted to argue, but he knew she was right. His rule had been built on arrogance, on control. He had never been a leader, he had been a conqueror, a man trying to fill a void with power. "So what now?" he asked. "Do I simply become a ghost beneath the sea? A forgotten prince?" Nia smiled faintly. "A king without a kingdom is still a king, if he chooses to be." He frowned. "And what does that mean?" She reached out and took his hand. The moment their fingers touched, a surge of ancient magic passed between them. "It means the ocean has plans for you." Baku had barely begun to process her words when the ocean itself came alive. A sudden current grabbed him, yanking him away from Nia. He fought against it, but it was too strong. "Baku!" Nia called, trying to swim toward him, but something unseen held her back. Then, from the darkness of the abyss, they appeared. Figures of shimmering blue, their forms shifting like water itself. The elders of the deep. Baku's breath caught. He had heard whispers of them in legends, ancient beings, neither human nor merfolk, who ruled the mysteries of the sea. One of them, a towering figure with glowing silver eyes, spoke first. "You abandoned the land," his voice was deep, like a rumbling wave. A second, a woman with hair like flowing seaweed, continued. "But the ocean does not give without taking in return." A third, barely more than a shadow, added in a whisper. "You must prove yourself worthy of your new fate." Baku forced himself to stand his ground, though the water around him felt heavy. "And if I refuse?" he challenged. The silver-eyed elder tilted his head. "Then you will belong to neither land nor sea. A forgotten soul, lost in the currents forever." Baku's jaw clenched. He had already lost everything once, he would not allow himself to become nothing. "What must I do?" The elders raised their hands, and suddenly, the ocean vanished. Baku found himself falling. Through water, through darkness, until he crashed onto solid ground. When he looked up, he was no longer in the ocean. He was somewhere else entirely. Baku gasped for breath. He was surrounded by ruins, ancient pillars covered in coral, statues of kings long forgotten. The air smelled of salt, though there was no sky above, only a ceiling of endless water. A massive temple stood in the distance, its doors glowing with an eerie blue light. "Where am I?" he whispered. A voice, neither male nor female, echoed around him. "You stand in the heart of the lost kingdom, where the first rulers of the sea were crowned." Baku turned, expecting to see the elders, but they were gone. He was alone. Or so he thought. From the shadows of the ruins, something stirred. A pair of glowing eyes locked onto him. And then, from the darkness, a creature unlike anything he had ever seen emerged. Half man, half serpent, covered in scales that shimmered like liquid silver. A crown of jagged coral rested upon its brow. It smiled, revealing razor-sharp teeth. "Only the worthy leave this place alive." Baku took a step back, his heart pounding. This was no ordinary trial. This was a fight for survival. And he intended to win. Baku's muscles tensed as the serpent-like creature slithered toward him, its silver scales shimmering under the dim blue light of the temple. The jagged coral crown atop its head marked it as something ancient, something powerful. The creature circled him, its long, muscular tail dragging across the stone floor. "You are unworthy," it hissed, its voice echoing in the vast ruins. Baku stood his ground, his breath steady despite the weight of the unknown pressing down on him. He had faced warlords, armies, betrayal, but nothing like this. "And yet, I am still here," he countered. The creature's lips curled into something resembling a smile. "For now." Then, it struck. A blur of silver scales lashed toward him, faster than any enemy he had ever faced. Baku barely had time to react. He dove aside, rolling across the broken stone. The creature's tail smashed into the ground where he had just stood, shattering rock into dust. Baku scrambled to his feet, his instincts roaring to life. This was no mindless beast. It was testing him. "Fighting will get you nowhere," the voice of the elders echoed in his mind. Only the worthy leave this place alive. Baku narrowed his eyes. If brute force wouldn't work, then what would? Baku shifted his stance, watching the creature more carefully now. Its movements were calculated, not wild. This is a test, he realized aloud. The serpent let out a low, amused hiss. You learn quickly. But do you know the answer? Baku's mind raced. If the elders wanted to see if he was worthy, then there had to be more to this than battle. What had they said? You abandoned the land, but the ocean does not give without taking in return. Did that mean he had to give something up? The creature lunged again. This time, instead of dodging, Baku stood still. The moment before impact, he closed his eyes. And let go. Instead of resisting, instead of fighting, he surrendered. The serpent stopped inches from his face, its fangs glistening. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then, it pulled back. Its golden eyes gleamed with something that almost looked like respect. You understand, it said, its voice softer now. The weight pressing down on the air vanished. The glowing doors of the temple creaked open, revealing a throne room bathed in shifting light. Baku exhaled. He had passed the first test. But there was still more to come. Baku stepped into the temple, his footsteps echoing. The walls were lined with murals, depicting kings and queens of the sea, rulers who had existed long before human kingdoms ever rose. At the center of the room stood a throne, carved from pure obsidian and wrapped in golden seaweed. It radiated power, as if the ocean itself had blessed it. Baku could feel it, calling to him. He hesitated. A king without a kingdom is still a king, if he chooses to be. Nia's words whispered in his mind. This throne, this place, was this what the ocean had meant for him? Kneel. Baku turned sharply. The serpent had followed him inside, its form shimmering, shifting, until it was no longer a beast, but a man. Tall, regal, with the same silver scales embedded in his dark skin. His coral crown still rested atop his head, but now, his eyes held the weight of eternity. Who are you? Baku asked. The man smiled. I was once the ruler of the ocean, before the sea demanded a new king. He gestured to the throne. And now, it has chosen again. Baku's chest tightened. You're saying the ocean wants me to rule? The former king nodded. But not as you were. Not as a man of the land, driven by greed and pride. He stepped closer, his gaze piercing. Are you willing to become something more? Baku clenched his fists. He had already abandoned his old life. His throne above the waves was lost forever. Was this his true purpose? The weight of the decision settled over him. Then, slowly, he stepped forward. And knelt before the throne. The moment Baku's knee touched the stone floor, the temple rumbled. The murals on the walls shifted, as if the past was rewriting itself. The throne pulsed with light, its golden seaweed curling around Baku's arms. The water around him shimmered, and an ancient voice filled the chamber. Do you swear yourself to the ocean? To rule not with chains, but with wisdom. To protect, not to conquer. Baku swallowed hard. This was it. I swear. The energy surged through him, ancient, powerful, undeniable. The ocean had accepted him. And in that moment, Baku was no longer a prince. He was a king. Far above, on the surface, the world continued on. The land that Baku had once ruled crumbled without him, lost in endless war. But in the depths, a new kingdom was born. Baku stood at the heart of it, the ocean's power coursing through his veins. The throne was his now, but it was no longer a seat of conquest, it was a responsibility. Nia appeared beside him, her gaze soft. You chose well, she murmured. Baku looked out into the vast sea, his kingdom stretching endlessly before him. For the first time, I think I did. And so, the arrogant prince became a legend. Not as a ruler of men, but as a king of the sea. A king who had lost everything. And in doing so, had found his true self.